remember one trial I did where the judge sent the sheriff over and said, the judge is mad at you. And I looked at it and said, well, my pencil squeaking, what's the matter? He says, no, he saw your picture on the 10 o'clock news. And he says, he's got more hair.
If you lived in Memphis for any time at all, you've probably seen the work of artist Tom Foster.
Yeah, that operation being immortalized in print.
The Tennessee Waltz corruption scandal is no laughing matter, but a court sketch artist who's worked the case has found new life for his drawings in a comic book.
The FBI sting tagged Operation Tennessee Waltz is now a comic book.
That's right.
Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, it's a
I was
pleasure to
saying
be here.
earlier during the break, we could talk all day and still not cover all the work you've done. Foster's artwork inspired by courtroom drama that has made news in the Mid-South. Now,
All the ups and downs of the John Ford trial, including the events surrounding the drama, captured by a courtroom sketch artist.
From serious business to some funny matters, all the drama of the John Ford trial is now bound into a comic book for you to read. Courtroom artist Tom Foster has turned his sketches of the Ford trial into a comic book called The Waltzing Senator.
Courtroom artist has documented the trials and tells the story through cartoons.
Well, the waltzing senator.
do you sketch in the courtroom for business or pleasure or both?
I've done it freelance for CBS. I've done it for NBC, and I did it here for Channel 5, Channel 3, Channel 24, and sometimes it's freelance, sometimes I've worked for the stations.
That a courtroom artist is documenting and telling the story through cartoons.
Tom Foster has been a courtroom artist for almost 30 years. He covered the John Ford trial and has now turned his work of art into a book.
And what makes this comic book so impressive is that it's accurate, descriptive, and gives perspective to the undercover operation tagged Tennessee Waltz. But it also gives an insider's look at the trials, in and out of the courtroom, with specific attention to former Senator John Ford.
Especially with this very, very controversial case. Were you a little bit afraid, oh my gosh, but even with the drawing, somebody is going to get really upset.
This is a great city for drama and excitement in the court.
It is.
For you, our first guest has been a courtroom artist for almost 30 years. Now, Tom Foster has taken his drawings from the John Ford trial, and believe it or not, he turned them into a comic book.
Tom Foster, a longtime courtroom sketch artist, put together this comprehensive graphic documentary of Operation Tennessee Waltz. You might call it a comic book.
It's sort of a comic book?
Yes, it's either political satire or satirical politics.
Now with the story, Jason, it sounds like a pretty good idea. You said it's pretty good too, right?
Well, Bernard, it's kind of like an animated time capsule. In this graphic documentary, you get a feel of what it was like inside the courtroom, who the players are, what they said and when, but also all the other news events taking place during John Ford's 3-week trial.
Unbelievable. It is called The Waltzing Senator, and while the book is humorous in places, it is based on facts, some of which you may not have even heard reported before. Tom.
While you may find the comic strip funny, Foster says everything in the comic book is true. He says all the information was taken from the courtroom testimony. Inside the comic book, you'll find out tidbits of information about Ford you may not have known.
Readers even get tidbits of information they might not have heard before.
I learned that John Ford was scared of water. Maybe he can't swim, but any of the references of the ocean or going out across the seas, he kind of balked at. And then the FBI never knew Tim Willis used their undercover office to shoot a scene in his movie after they went home.
The book has its funny moments, but it's all based on facts.
Even, now clearly the words are coming from fact, from transcripts.
Every line that the characters speak is either from the trial transcript or from the FBI records.
But there is no fiction in Foster's latest project.
It's as close as you can get to some of what goes in court without actually going there.
In April, this illustrator and courtroom sketch artist found himself in the front row at federal court, covering John Ford's Tennessee Waltz trial.
For most observers, the undercover video of former Senator John Ford taking money was interesting to watch. In trial, his defense arguments were compelling, the prosecution fierce. But many didn't get to experience it all. That's why this courtroom sketch artist felt he had to show people what they may have missed.
Secret recordings, tales of corruption, bribery.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
And the lavish lifestyles of the politically powerful.
Halfway through the book, I realized, well, this is like some James Bond movie.
Instead of a movie, Foster wrote a comic book about the former senator's bribery trial.
I was on the John Ford trial. I just took some sketchbooks and I just kept drawing the whole time. The days I wasn't freelancing, I just kept drawing. I filled up 2 sketchbooks. I took notes, and I just got really involved.
Hundreds of sketches later, Foster compiled a comic book. The Waltzing Senator is a 3-week recap of the Ford trial testimony.
You know, at times it was a circus.
There's, of course, the Mary Winkler trial, the Ed Ford City Council outburst of racism in a white sheet, and the MLGW scandal that was all unfolding at the same time of the trial.
That's who?
Ophelia Ford.
That's Ophelia Ford?
Foster didn't just illustrate the ups and downs of the John Ford trial, but other components of Operation Tennessee Waltz. He gives you the history of the characters in the trial. He offers perspective by showing you just how many news events were taking place while Senator Ford's fighting for his freedom.
To give the reader background about the story, Foster includes information about other news events going on at the time of the Waltz trial. The book covers 3 weeks in Memphis. Each week depicts the way he started his, listening to what the folks on the number 2 bus were talking about, the bus he rode to get to the courthouse every day.
I rode the number 2 bus here this morning. I want to say hello to Leah and Rose at the VA. I met them, and they knew about the book and had seen about it and were complimentary. And I tried to represent just what it's like to be in Memphis, from like being at a neighborhood level and then all the way down to federal court.
Now, the author, Tom Foster, a courtroom sketch artist, takes a number of different views and perspectives from the trial. He writes through the characters that are not only trying the case or defending John Ford, but also the everyday observer. In fact, he uses the conversations he overheard on the bus to and from the federal courthouse to take you from one day to the next.
Foster hopes readers will enjoy his unique perspective on this chapter in Memphis history.
His representation, though comical at times, is amazingly accurate and could offer a look into the past for people reviewing this time in Memphis history.
I tried to do something that I thought maybe 50 years from now or 100 years from now, people who live in Memphis would give them an idea what it's like to live here and what was going on.
The story seemed to intertwine this historic period in Memphis history.
20 years from now or 50 years from now, it's going to be a really nice little slice of life in Memphis. And it might give a little more color to what it was like to be here rather than just reading straight text or a history book or something, because I tried to include so many sides, and there's so much irony in just that 3 weeks. And I felt like half of it was just as a taxpayer, it was very cathartic for me to just, you know, maybe I can't do anything about it. Well, I can put a comic book out. I had the fortune that as a taxpayer, the FBI provided the transcripts to the media, and y'all talked about the stories and everything, the papers and everything. So I didn't have to write the dialogue.
You had the
characters
material.
It was right there in front of you.
Well, and some of that dialogue you can't make up.
Precisely.
Now, you've got pictures from the courtroom, but then do you add your own words?
Well, the FBI provided us with the transcript, and I cleaned it up a little bit.
Okay.
It's got a lot of the actual quotes, and then I took quotes in the trial, and then I researched a lot of the papers and everybody and talked to reporters. Usually I'll do the artwork and give it to one of you reporters, and y'all take it back, and y'all make the words up, or, I mean, write the words or report the words.
Not make the words.
I didn't mean that. But,
we tried on
so this time I had to do that myself and in the book. And so I was looking at, like I was documenting living history, and it's actually things that took place in 3 weeks in April in Memphis. But once it got going, I was intensely aware of something I'd never had the experience that y'all probably deal with, and that living history, you're dealing with human beings. And there's a human side to this, and I've gotten more into it. But I've had so much reaction from this. I've just been really surprised at how widespread the reaction's been.
You have gotten some interesting reactions from a lot of folks and some of the key players in this case, family members.
Yeah, and the people who were quoted.
Right. Give us an idea who all has responded to this, Tom, about the comic book. What are they saying to you?
I've had positive and very complimentary response from both sides of the trial and in the court. Maybe the judge and Michael Scholl and Tim DeCenza and everybody. So they're all been really good sports about, you know, they look a little different in each panel. But
did that surprise you a little bit that they did respond? I mean, you again had judges, you had attorneys, you had some family members of Mr. Ford.
Well, John Ford's ex-wife, Tamara Mitchell Ford, of course, has been in the news here recently. And do you know whether she's read it?
She's read it. I got a phone call from her. Very nice, complimenting things. She pointed out a few things, and it's in the book. January '04, Senator Ford passed legislation to lower his child support payments to her. And obviously, you can't just write a bill and pass it yourself. You got to get other people to pass it. And again, that ties into the whole human side of this.
It's definitely going down in history. Yeah.
Tom, thank you.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate it.
We are about
Great
to shift
job.
gears here. We're talking politics.
While Memphis politics isn't exactly comical, Tom Foster says there's no shortage of stories that warrant putting pen to paper.
Waltzing senator.
Foster won't be putting down his pen anytime soon.
I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot doing it.
That Foster has already had to order more copies because the books are selling. In fact, he says he's never written anything that appears to be garnering so much attention. And after reading through it, you kind of see why. It's entertaining, but extremely accurate.
Seems to be taking a life of its own.
Since Operation Tennessee Waltz is still an open case and some are appealing their convictions, Foster expects more drama to unfold in the coming years.
I've had more positive reaction from this than anything I've done, and it's reached a wider audience.
And if you're wondering if he's done,
Looks like, since this is election year, there's going to be a lot more stuff to draw and write about for maybe volume 2.
Now, Foster says get ready for book number 2. He sees more drama unfolding in the future as some of the dirty politicians appeal their sentences.
We've got more for another issue.
Well, there is so much going on here in town. I know it keeps you busy.
I used to do science fiction cartoons and stuff. I couldn't come up with stuff that's crazy that's going on.
That's what I always say. You can't make it up.
Now, Foster also says he plans to write another book, since Operation Tennessee Waltz is still an open case and some are appealing their convictions.
The tools of Tom Foster's trade are simple.
And I just used a flare and a black ballpoint pen.
You're in the courtroom, you know, for years and years and years making sketches.
Until before Courtroom TV. And
I just happened to be on Main Street and went into Then and Again. We were doing a live shot outside of there, and the shop owner there told me about your work, and I was thinking that is a brilliant idea to put some of the big trials on display. What are some of the trials you'll feature?
I started doing it in 1980, so off and on for 27 years I've done it. I've got stuff from the Dr. Nicopolis trial, Arthur Wayne Baldwin trial, 2 of the Senator Gillett trials, the John Ford trial, and the Patawaris trial, the terror trial we had earlier this year. And maybe a couple others I forgot.
You and I worked down at the Ford trial a little bit together.
Yeah, that was good.
You know, I don't think people appreciate how quickly you have to turn these images. That's something I can't even comprehend.
There's a little pressure.
Wow.
There, but it's like, and I've got a lot of friends who perform upstage, and it's like live music. You either get it right or you don't, but you have to go out there and do it. So. And it's an honor to be here and,
Well,
and be
it's
on
an
y'all
honor
show
to
and
have
meet
you.
y'all.
And I wanted to tell people you might already own some of Tom's work. He has done artwork for the movie 40 Shades of Blue, cover art for the Mississippi All-Stars, and lots of other stuff around town. So take a look at the signature. You might already own some Tom's work. It's fun. You get, vilified, you get lumped in with them.